Welcome to the Salad Bowl. To be honest with you, this is a new area for me. I'm somewhat extremely nervous about going into this venture, but ultimately I feel like it's one of those things that's needed in order to make our world a little bit better. Not trying to pat on my back by any means, but I think some of the things that we'll be doing with this podcast will highlight some individuals that really need to be shown in the forefront. With that being said, I do want to introduce myself before we get started in any kind of subject matter or content. My name is Kevin Thompson. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Here in New Orleans, I know that's not something that's going to be highlighted or celebrated, seeing as though I am an Atlanta Falcon fan living here within New Orleans. But from Georgia, graduated high school, and shortly after I joined the United States Marine Corps. For the last 18 and a half years, I've been a United States Marine. I've had the luxury of traveling all over this world, whether it is, Japan. I've done some deployments as far as Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan. Just been a lot of different places and had the luxury of bringing my family a lot of different places as well. I've explored a lot of different occupations within the military. So whether it was, supply and logistics background. I've also been a recruiter for the United States Marine Corps, where our teenage individuals all the way up to our 20-year-olds who want to join the Marine Corps, I'm the one that signs them up, or I'm supervising the recruiters that are actually signing them up. With that, I've also been in kind of like the planning world of the Marine Corps as well. So my occupation is considered a MACTAF planning specialist, to where I plan deployments for Marines to go out on. We'll schedule the plane to show up right on time, and the trucks to pick the Marines up from the plane once they land, and get them to their destination so they can do what America depends on us to do. The last leg of my career is the one that kind of stands out to me, because I feel like I've found somewhat of my passion. I'm currently in a role called Equal Opportunity Advisor. And through that, it takes kind of a fuller humanistic aspect to what we do in organizational spaces. I've learned humans very well, and some of the qualities that they bring to an organizational workspace, but I also have seen a lot of dysfunction as well, which intrigues me. Hence why I've started to get into, well, if I'm understanding all these humanistic aspects, what can I do in order to make that a little bit better? So as I get ready to transition from the United States Marine Corps and start my civilian life within the next 2 years or so, I said I want to give a valuable contribution. And maybe that looks like taking the skills in which I've gathered from the military when it comes to communication and ensuring that other people can benefit from it. So I thought about starting this podcast. Why the Salad Bowl as a podcast title? I've been asked that a couple of times as I've talked to my friends, talked to my family about this endeavor, and they always ask me why the Salad Bowl. The reason why I landed on the Salad Bowl is based off of a philosophy that I truly actually believe in. A lot of times, especially in American culture, we look to terms like melting pot to describe the mixing of different individuals as far as their culture, their background, their religion. And I really don't have any gripes when it comes to that kind of mindset. But the Salad Bowl philosophy somewhat critiques the melting pot philosophy, as far as why should it take for you to melt down who you are or subdue who you are to be part of a bigger collective. Here at the Salad Bowl, I think what we try to explore is that we want you to bring all of yourself to the table. You should be okay with being a separate ingredient and adding yourself into this meal and still getting a full perspective of how this thing works out without taking away from who you are. That is the reason why I landed on this title of the Salad Bowl concept. And I look forward to seeing the vast amount of ingredients that we put together in order to make this great salad. Okay, so starting off with our inaugural episode, I'm truly excited. I found it necessary to bring somebody on who, one, knows about me, but I also know about them. Maybe I'm trying to build a little bit of a comfort level, but also share with the listeners out there what I am totally centered upon when it comes to what intrigues me about a beautiful, resilient story, or these stories that I'm going to be introducing to our fan base. I plan on bringing in somebody who can intrigue you and not just waste your time when you're driving in the car, or whether you're, in your quiet zone and you just want to listen to something that's relaxing. So I brought in my wife. She has a lot of different definitions and things that define her across a whole spectrum of definitions. All right, welcome to the Salad Bowl. This is the inaugural episode, and I have my very first guest with me, Moriah Thompson. Yay! Welcome to the Salad Bowl, Moriah.
Thanks, Daddy Pants.
Daddy Pants. Is that what you're going to be referring to me as the entire time, or?
Per usual.
Really? I don't even get Kev. It's just Daddy Pants.
You might get Salad Bowl Kev.
Salad Bowl Kev? We're going to go ahead and hashtag that, or like maybe we sound old when we say that, because I think that may be a passing trend.
Hashtag is gone?
Hashtag may be gone.
Okay.
It might be. But again, we probably have to ask the kids if that's relevant nowadays.
Man, them kids.
All right. Okay. Well, seeing as though Daddy Pants is my identity for this podcast, I think that leads into the first question I have for you. What's your identity? And not just for this podcast, but in life right now. Currently, who is Moriah on a day-to-day basis in 2024 as we sit here today?
Moriah is practicing on being herself first.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
I've gotten used to being a lot of things, and I've embraced a lot of those roles. And I have to really put practice into like listening to what I need. Okay. I don't often do that.
Okay.
So should I continue?
Yes. Other
All
identities.
Right, so
what do you have?
I'm me. I am a mom. I'm a wife to a very handsome young man.
Here she go.
Henceforth referred to as Daddy Pants, also known as Salad Bowl Kev. Okay. What I said, mom of 3 kids, wife. I'm a registered nurse, which I love being, and even more, a lactation consultant. I'm an entrepreneur.
Oh.
Plug time.
Plug time. Go ahead and throw it out there. What's the big business plug on this one?
I am the entrepreneur and business owner of Sweet Relief Lactation.
Sweet Relief Lactation.
Okay. I'm a sister. I'm a niece. I'm a daughter. I'm a dancer. I like to run. I like to garden. I like to write poems. I like to watch TV. I'm relatively animated.
Relatively?
And I think that's all the things.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So usually, like when we talk about identities, that's who you are in current day. But there's also, when it comes to identities, a definition of like your desiring self as well. Like we have who we are, but usually we have goals or things that we're looking towards in which we're trying to get to. Would you say that in your desiring self, what does that actually look like? Are you focused on any particular goals right now that you want to be?
I mean, I kind of started to say it by just saying thinking about myself, which just means like listening to my own inner self. Okay. Trying to just pay attention to that more, slow it down enough to hear it. But in that same light, it's for each of those goals, who I desire to be is just to grow in all of those roles and just kind of keep growing in it, evolving in all of those roles.
Okay, so when you talk about growth in all these different roles, and I think back to how you defined yourself or gave yourself an initial identity, What does growth look like as far as being a mother?
Looks like an eternity of of change.
Okay.
I mean, all right, so we have 3 kids.
We do.
You know that. They don't know that. We have 3 kids. Well, some people know that. Whatever. They're 15, 11, and 4. And often I talk about how I feel like we go from one planet to the next when we are, interacting with each kid on an individual level. And in order to grow, I think I just have to keep recognizing, where each of them are, what their strengths are, to play them up, and what their weaknesses are, to try to see how I can help them and be comfortable in both of those things and be confident, and then just be willing to change and go with it. I mean, they're dynamic people just like we're dynamic people. So it just kind of means being open, I guess, to whatever comes next with them. So
one thing that seems like is becoming very apparent for us 2 parents when it comes to our children is that time is going by extremely fast. It seems like, so our 15-year-old Kaya, it seemed like she was just a baby, and now she's 15. And we have less years with her than, behind us. And to know that we're growing a person to go out there to brave the world like we have, at least for me, it's a little bit scary. I would assume it's the same for you, but yes, it's definitely a learning process. Whoever thought that you would have this whole parenting thing figured out just because you've been a child before, they're definitely wrong about that one. But in terms of growth, you talked about being a mother and your growth in that and what your expectation is. What about in being a wife? What does growth look like?
What you trying to say?
I'm not trying to say anything.
You saying I need to grow? Is what you're saying?
Those are your words. I might be agreeing. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I guess kind of. Let me see if I want to think about it specifically. I think that we have a big transition coming up. So I've known you as high school Kev.
Yes.
And now you've been in the military for, almost 18 and a half years. Yeah. I've known you the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I think to a certain degree, like there was a little bit of figuring out like how to be a spouse and support you in that role, because I had never been exposed to military life, and it kind of feels like now that I'm figuring that out, we about to be doing something else. Yeah. So to a certain degree, like trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to support you through that transition, because it's a big transition. And I think too, just we both have recognized that we have changed. I feel like we're going to use these same 3 words: grow, evolve, and change, like 12 times. But we both have over the years, and we'll continue to. Like that is the normal way that it goes. And like you had said the other day, we keep choosing to still love one another actively, which it's not a passive thing. Well, sometimes it's passive. Sometimes it's easy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. Sitting over there looking cute or whatever.
Hey, come on now. Come on now.
That's when it's real easy. No, but I think I'm looking forward to continuing to choose it and to see the ways that you choose it. I think it's become more and more obvious. Like we've had a lot of like realizing like, oh, you were raised way totally different. And then also being like, oh, you actually really enjoy those things I actually really don't enjoy. Or, whatever it is, just figuring it out and then realizing that that doesn't necessarily mean what it meant for your parents or my parents. So it's just been a lot of figuring out. So I guess in the long extended answer is basically just continuing to figure it out together and, learning what new roles are going to be and what my new role is, seeing you have more time to yourself, seeing what you create and being down for it.
Yeah, it actually makes me think of, I remember when we were in Japan, it was that 2012 to 14 type of, I think that was 2012. Yeah, it was like around 2012 to 2014. We were stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And I specifically remember we had a mentor of ours that was our pastor in the church that we were attending at the time. His name was Pastor Brian. Shout out Pastor Brian, Julie, the boys. And we were doing some counseling at the time. I think initially I was kind of resistant to the counseling. I was very resistant.
You think?
Well, I remember going in, and one of the main things that I heard him tell us was one of the hardest things about being married is choosing to be married every single day.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And I think that is necessary when it comes to the growth, and the growth that we've seen in our marriage as well is no matter the ups, the downs, whether we're happy or unhappy in moments, we keep on waking up and choosing to be married. One of the things that do stand out to me, though, as I somewhat take some accountability for how this relationship plays out, as we move on to the future, I am somewhat aware of, someone told me the other day, in getting out the military, it's a grieving process. Of course.
I've been said that.
Okay, then maybe it was you who told me that.
All right.
All right, well, let's just give you the credit.
Okay,
all right?
thank you. Continue.
So you were telling me.
I really did say that. You didn't hear me say that?
I maybe have missed that one.
Okay.
Was the game on? I can tell you better if you said it or not. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that person or yourself, if you were the one that was telling me, was that getting out the military is a grieving process, and being aware of this grieving process that I'm currently going through, because I plan on getting out of the military in the next year and a half, 2 years. I'm trying to do the work now. That way I don't, drag you through some healthy or unhealthy aspects of me getting out the military.
That's cool to know.
Yeah. So
I think the term I used was like divorce. It's kind of like a divorce. Like you were in this relationship, and like you went into the relationship believing it was one thing, and you got certain things from it. And then like the longer you realize, like, I'm not saying, you just outgrew it. Like you're like, okay, actually this thing isn't for me. So not necessarily reflecting on it like a total bad thing, but just like you've outgrown it. It's time to move on for this next thing. But like, obviously you put so many years into it, and you can't, you had lots of expectations. You've put so much in, you've gotten certain things back. You've gotten, some stings, you've gotten, some opportunities, and now to like, not walk away, but like to have to kind of transition away.
Of course, especially for an organization like the Marine Corps, where, a lot of my colleagues, even myself at times, has like defined ourselves by our occupation solely. I think that's kind of what we're bred to do.
Yeah, but you
once
never
a Marine,
did that.
Always a Marine.
You never did that.
I tried. It was a constant effort in not trying to be solely defined. And actually, Simon Sinek, I was watching a video on him the other day, and he was talking about how when you solely define yourself on something that is finite, you find yourself in a particular position, because when that finite thing ends, you're searching for the next definition. So,
Well, and I feel like I see that with moms all the time when their children leave the house.
yeah.
So I think that's part of where I'm like, okay, I got to listen to myself, because I don't want to it's always going to be a transition, but like you don't lose yourself in the process. So that's part of why I'm like, that's part of my preparing for Kaya leaving the house. Is like, okay, I can't wake up. I can't find that I wake up and the kids are gone, and I'd be like,
What now?
yeah, I don't know what, and you hear people say it all the time, but like when you start to actually experience it, it's just I don't know, it's interesting.
It is. I think it just reflects, like what you said, growth or transition. And usually those things are uncomfortable, but it's part of life. Part of life. So with that being said, we talked about your growth, evolution, and the identity of being a wife, a mother. What about? You also introduced yourself as a niece, a daughter. What does growth and transition look like in those aspects of your life?
It's crazy because like you asked that question, it makes me want to cry. I think I'm at this place where I think we're at this place where we're realizing we're getting older. We're by no means old, but we're getting older, which means that the generations above are also getting older. And so I think as a daughter, as a niece, like I'm in this place, having lost people, where you're like trying to save up all the moments you can and like learn what you can and ask what you can. So I think that's where I am for the most part. I think what's cool is that I try to be intentional about the moments that I get with my aunts specifically that I grew up with. And there, one of my aunts has passed away, but I still feel like I get things from her in being around my other aunts, which is really cool because she was my godmother and we were very close. So yeah, I think in that light, and I think I have to keep practicing not comparing myself because, man, I feel like I never, in any way when I think about it, when I'm like, man, I'm overwhelmed. I have 3 kids. And then I'm like, dang, my mama had 2 more kids. Like all in the same age range, every time I'm like, I cannot be overwhelmed, but that's not healthy for anybody. So just, just kind of being grateful that I'm in a place where I'm so close to them and trying to make sure that I let life stop enough to spend time and absorb things from them because they're extremely valuable to me. And, they're like, what's the words? Like they're part of the village. Like they are pillars, that hold up the village. That is the reason that we can do anything that we do.
Of course. It actually makes me think of, I wore this shirt intentionally. It's probably one of my favorite shirts. Of course, I do wash it. I make sure that I don't wear it too much.
He don't stink.
I don't stink. But it says, if you can see it, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And I think about the people who came before us and even the people that are currently on the last, leg or tier of their life who are just trying to make sure that we're set up in order to, set a platform, not necessarily just generational wealth when it comes to finances, but, the characteristics of who we are. I would love for my ancestors to look down on us or, from wherever they're at and say, like, that's what we intended. And I would just say that, I think knowing you and knowing the people who came before you, like your grandmother, your grandfather, they are definitely, I would say, looking on what you and your sisters, your brothers, your mother and your father are doing. And I think they would give a nod of approval, but I think we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
That kind of segues us into my next question for you, actually, babe. When it comes to your identity, right? We talked about what you currently look like, what you're currently shooting for or aiming for. There's a lot I don't know about your childhood, right? So like we met when we were very young. We were 17 years old. We met by way of Hurricane Katrina, based off of you living in New Orleans. I'm from Atlanta. That life event, I would say, brought you to me or had us intertwined based off of you coming to my high school. But of course, I mean, I didn't know you before you were 17. What did your early years look like?
I think they were pretty simple in a good way. I remember them. Like I said, there's 5 of us in a 5-year period. We were pretty close. We lived in a relatively small house, but it never felt cramped as far as, we knew. We celebrated Kwanzaa. We talked a lot about our, history as African Americans. We did African dance and drum as a whole family. So we spent a lot of time with people from Africa who taught us about, different groups and different dances that the different groups do, why they did them. We made costumes. And outside of dance and drum and school, we mostly spent time with our family, with my aunts, with my cousins, with each other. That was pretty much it. That was, we didn't go and be by lots of people's houses a whole lot. We played outside. We were very imaginative children. We still are.
Yeah.
We,
I'm assuming y'all watched a lot of Disney movies as well, because
we watched.
For the listeners out there, if you ever want to watch a Disney movie, especially with Moriah, you might not actually hear the movie because she probably knows every single word.
Excuse me. Some people enjoy the commentary and the animation that I bring.
It's like Disney karaoke.
Yes.
With dialogue.
Exactly. Yeah. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that?
Who wouldn't want that? Especially if you haven't seen the movie before. I would assume that there are some people.
Who hasn't seen The Lion King?
I don't know. Some people live under rocks.
No.
I'm just saying. But grew up a lot of family around, a sense of community. Your aunts and uncles, cousins, possibly. That is one thing I will say that I've been exposed to. So now that we live back here in New Orleans, I was able to get some orders that, had the end of my military career kind of segue us outside to our civilian life, and getting those orders to New Orleans was a perfect place for me to do that. But being down here, especially being an in-law, there were some concerns that I had of being so close to your family. I was like, oh man, like, is it going to be, overbearing? Is it going to be overwhelming? And I will tell you that the sense of community that you're talking about, that you grew up on, is exactly the opposite of what my fears were kind of alluding me to believe. Just the amount of love that I've noticed in your family. I don't want to say it's better or worse than my own, but in Atlanta, first of all, Atlanta is a lot more spread out. So we kind of go off of like, we live close enough to our family, but far enough away to where you just ain't popping up on at my doorstep without giving me a call. Down here, with everything being closer, you get a lot more of a family aspect of how y'all operate. Within maybe like a 2-mile radius of our house, how many family members would you say like live
within 2 miles?
Within 2 miles. 2 to 5 miles away from our house.
Oh, 5 miles is like everyone.
Right.
5 miles is like everyone. Within 2 miles, there's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, your mother lives on literally the next street over.
Oh, so maybe like 7 or 8.
Okay. All right. Then as you think about it more, there's probably going to be more that pop up.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot. But again, I guess to my exposure of your family, it's even the small things in which I've noticed. I've told you before that, you're even down to your cousins. There's 2 cousins that I'm going to shout out, Greg, Christopher, and actually I'm going to throw Corey in there as well. Corey, Big Corey, we'll call her Big Corey.
Yeah, we know.
But with these individuals, in order for you to know that you're loved by them, all it takes is a hug. Like, you see them at events, they drop by the house. They're the type of people that they don't hug you, they embrace you, right? And it doesn't feel, like I said, overwhelming or overbearing, but they take a second of their time just to say, even as an in-law, when they say, hey, Kev, how you doing? They're not asking like for that, just bypassing, oh, I'm good, and just go to the kitchen, get some food. They're more like, hey, how are you? They take their time, they love on you. And that's one thing I can only imagine growing up with that environment, what that did for you. As far as like some of the standout family members, and not saying that, all your family members aren't important, but like, who stands out in your mind as a big influence on who your identity is today?
I think that would be really hard to try to pick any one person, because it really was, a collective. Most of our cousins are relatively older than us. So we're the youngest. My mom is the youngest of 7. And so we're the youngest kids. But I think if anyone, it really was my aunts. I spent a lot of time with my godmother, and because by the time we were, coming up, their kids were all out of the house. So they were like away at college, or married already. So, I mean, I would think like truly it's pretty much all my aunts. Like we often talk about their different characteristics, and, some who are a little bit more instructional and some who are...
You got to define further what instructional means.
Just the ones who are going to always tell everybody what's going on.
Okay. Yeah.
Where to be and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
We have some aunts who have just always been super laid back, like steady, laid back. Then, just all the different personalities of women, in the household. And most of them, by the time I was spending time with them, were divorced. So it was just them in the house. They were running their houses. They were running things. And so spent a lot of time with them. So I think if I had to try to point out family members that I think most define me, it would be my aunts. But I will say that I have learned love and how I receive love by looking at all of my family members. So even when I spend time or when I'm around my male cousins, the way that they address me or talk to me, like Christopher. I think I told you this recently Okay. So when we were in Okinawa, Virginia was our first duty station, but Okinawa was the first place we like moved to together. We experienced for the first time together.
Right.
We were there for 2 years.
2.5.
Two and a half.
Change.
Yeah. And we came home and we stayed with Christopher, stayed with my cousin. And while we were there, like the first couple days, weeks, that was a little shaky, I think, jet lag and like the initial appearance. But as time went on, we found a community, like we found friends, we found our spots, we found food we liked, like we made it, what it was, and it was good. And when we came home and we came into Christopher's house, we put all our stuff down and he hugged us and he was like talking to the kids and just asking like, so what's going on? What do you guys, just, I remember him like, he was being like just himself. And we were getting ready to go, to see some other cousins too. And we got in the car. Oh, I was so overwhelmed because it was like, okay, that is what I was missing. And I couldn't, I didn't know. It was like, I couldn't figure it out, or it was like in the back of my mind that's what I was missing was the kind of ways that we interact with each other. And it's the same with any of my cousins really that I'm around, especially the male cousins. The question, we don't necessarily sit there and like kick it and talk for hours. It's just like, are you good? And they mean, are you good? Like, is you and your family, are they good? Because whatever they have is easily mine if I need it.
Yes, 100%. I see you cheering up over there, and those are the expressions, or those are the emotions that come up when we talk about people we love. It actually makes me think of, just even our moving to New Orleans, how we were so taken care of. I would say that in the military, they always say like there are 3 places where Marines never want to go. That's to Okinawa, because of the transition that you're leaving the United States, going over to Japan. It's a rough transition. They say you don't want to go to 29 Palms, which ironically we've been there as well. Check in the box. Would not suggest that to anybody in this world, right? You're out in the middle of the desert, maybe 30, 45 minute drive to the first Walmart.
Unless you like 120 degree days and isolation.
Not good.
And Burger King. It's your place.
And then they say the last place that most Marines don't want to go is New Orleans. And I find that one to be the most ironic because in coming down here, one, it was a transition, especially if you listen to the news, you hear about all the downsides of possibly, what we see with the city having a hard time with schools and things like that. But I would say your family was the ones that made me feel okay about the decision that we made in coming down here. I mean, even down to the house that we live in was built by your cousin. I think it's a beautiful house on a beautiful plot of land, but your cousin Lauren, holy moly, she was like boss lady of New Orleans and putting that house together right after a hurricane and ensuring that we got into the right spot at the right time that looked well for us. Even down to once we got in that house, it seems that we're on like an in plot of land. There's a lot of like forestry, next to our house. It was your cousin Troy who brought his bobcat over that he just happens to just play with on a regular basis, and he did a lot of our landscaping for us as far as like knocking down some of the forestry that was overgrown, and even down to the fact he was like, "Yeah, Kev, hop in the bobcat. Just try." Just the amount of trust, love in their decisions. I don't think that they get too wrapped up in the finances behind it. They know if they're pouring into the family, it's meant to come back. So one thing that I truly appreciate about your family is definitely that. And I'm a little envious over here because I'm like, dang, like all this went into your early formative years of your life. That's pretty exciting because, unfortunately, not everybody gets that aspect. My father was a United States Marine, so we moved around a lot in my earlier years before moving back to Atlanta. And it was always just mom and dad. Of course, we would find our little families here and there, but like it really just ended up being mom and dad as the ones who had the final responsibility. One of the cool things about being here in New Orleans, I think, with your family is like sometimes, I'm gonna be honest here, I don't even know where our kids are at. And that's irresponsible as that sounds. I know that they're with their cousins, with one of their aunts or uncles. one of their uncles, Akeem, the other day, just randomly was like, "Hey, I'm going to the Fiery Crab, one of his favorite restaurants. Hey, I'm gonna pick up KJ, which is our youngest son. Does he want to come with me? Yeah, KJ, you want to go with Uncle Keem? Yeah, I want to go with Uncle Keem. Just picked him up randomly and just took him to a restaurant. Or even the older cousins of Kaya, Corey, and KJ would just be like, "Hey, I'm going to the mall. Do they want to ride with?" I never experienced anything like that coming up, but to see it or to have it for our children is one of the staples of why we plan on staying in this space for a very long time. But with that being said, as far as like continuing with your identity, of course, we call this the Salad Bowl podcast. The basis behind the Salad Bowl is ultimately just presenting as your full self and not having to melt down who you are or subdue who you are in order to be part of the bigger collective. We always want to just highlight those stories of really good, genuine people. As far as the Salad Bowl, I guess my next question for you is, what do you think you bring to any salad bowl? Like what ingredient do you think that you best reflect when it comes to adding to the salad bowl of life?
See, I previously thought I had my, when you was just saying it, I was like, oh, I know. And then
change of heart,
another ingredient popped up. And I'm caught between the two of them.
You could express both.
I can't be both ingredients.
I meant choose one then. We'll make it hard.
Okay. I'm going to be an artichoke.
Why an artichoke?
Because you like artichokes.
I never said that I didn't like artichoke, but I'm saying...
I know, because you do like them, I'm saying.
I do.
I was going to be an olive.
Why
because
olive?
I love olives.
Okay.
But you don't like olives.
I don't like olives.
But you like artichokes. You don't put them on your salad, but you about to start.
Oh, okay. If
you're going to try.
I will try it.
This is the salad bowl.
Hashtag salad bowl. All right. Well, then what makes you an artichoke when it comes to that? Like, what characteristic does an artichoke have, or that, let's just go with you specifically, have that you feel like you add to the salad bowl of life? Why are you the artichoke we're adding to this salad bowl?
I don't know, man. I don't really think an artichoke has anything to do with my personality. I think that
a lot of different layers.
Maybe. Yeah. Sure, the layers. I was thinking like a pickled artichoke, so those aren't really. Yeah. You like pickled artichoke?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's what you put on your salad. You don't just put raw. No. All right. Maybe in some ways I see myself as being an artichoke because they're not really an everyday salad topping. Most people don't, put artichokes. Not most people. I don't know. Kevin doesn't put artichokes on his salad. They're not really a main ingredient when you go to get like a regular salad.
Right.
And I don't think that I am super mainstream in my thought or in my thoughts. But to me, like I'm thinking about like how an artichoke is a little like, especially if it's pickled, it's kind of tart or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's my animation. That's the tart flavor.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I think what I generally bring to, depending on where I am, I try to be a soft place. I try to be caring and nurturing. I try to be attentive to other people's needs, especially the people that I love. And I like to fill those needs. I don't think that has anything to do with an artichoke, though. Okay. That's just, I'm an artichoke and still all of those other things.
It's interesting you say that because of course, we've been together for a very long time, but also I've heard a lot of feedback when people meet you, whether it's on my side of the house, from people from work meet you, or even some of the feedback from the people that you work with. A lot of people say like, Moriah is just this calming spirit. In knowing you, whether it's personally on how you operate in our household, whether it's people who meet you from that work with me, or even the people that you work with, one of the common factors of what people give feedback on you on is that you're a very calming person.
Do I calm you?
You do calm me. I mean, we've been married for a very long time, so not
what does that
all
mean?
The time. I mean,
okay.
We deal with each other on a constant basis.
So I'm not calming to you is what you're saying?
At every point of the day, no, you're not.
I didn't say at every point of the day, Kevin Michael.
But I'm saying, yeah, you have a calming presence about you.
For you, sometimes.
For me.
Okay.
Most times.
Interesting.
Most times.
Had to get on the
Even
podcast
like
to
as I think about it, right? Like I may have a hectic day at work. Not to make this like such a traditionalistic dad comes home and,
takes his pack off.
right. it's
Mama's
nothing like
there
that.
with her apron on.
No, you ain't. And that's another thing. Like you're not at home with your apron. You're usually getting home from work as well.
Yep.
Have all the things lined up. Dinner still made. So you're being superwoman, but still, have this calming presence that way when I get home, it's more of like, dang, I had a hard day. And I don't even have to unload on you about what my day was about, but usually your presence kind of just makes me leave work at work.
That's good to know.
But even as I think about like the people I've talked to at work, when you're in the hospital and you have like a patient or there's a mother who's concerned, and even the basis of like your business when it comes to Sweet Relief, just think about the title of your LLC, your business, right? Like Sweet Relief, you're making home visits to people who are struggling with breastfeeding, and especially at a pretty intense time of them leaving the hospital, getting back home, all the things that mount up for new mothers, or even existing mothers, but this is their first time with this baby trying to latch and things like that. You bring a calmness to somebody's approach when they're frustrated. And I think from my point of view, that is one of the biggest things that you contribute to the salad bowl of life, of just being yourself. And that's one thing I would never want you to melt down or subdue whenever you walk into a room, because it is extremely impactful for the people around you.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Well, with that being said, one, this was a lot easier than what I thought it was going to be when it came to doing our inaugural episode of the Salad Bowl. I think you set the bar extremely high.
I'm singing your trumpeting. Burn, burn, burn.
Was
For your inaugural episode.
that
Mm-hmm.
what instrument was that?
A trumpet.
That's what it looked. Okay. Can we get another trumpet sound?
Burn, burn, burn.
There's that animation she was talking about.
Oh, it's a disease, guys.
It is. No, but babe, I'm just going to say thank you for, one, riding with me on this new endeavor of me diving into a new space as I try to transition and find purpose in other things other than the military. And thanks for being my first guest on here. And I just thank you for being you. Of course, this is probably going to be an episode I look back on and say that it meant the most to me because you were sitting here right with me as we started this journey. And that's not setting a bar like that's going to be impossible to maintain for my other guests, but I just want to let you know it's significant to me that I was able to have you on here. And though we know each other so much, I still was able to learn something from you. What you learn? I learned that you're an artichoke. We'll probably unpack that one on the way home. All right. Even more.
Fair enough.
No, even in a short conversation, we still pick up many things from each other. The reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because we have people like Moriah walking around us every single day. And sometimes our interaction with those certain people are just, hey, how you doing? A handshake. And we don't know the many layers that come underneath. So in just taking a short amount of time to express ourselves, having genuine conversation, I think it speaks to the point that we have a lot to bring to the table whenever we show up as our authentic selves. So thank you for being my first guest, Boo. I love you to death. And I don't know what I would be doing in this life without you. So
probably not a podcast.
Probably not a podcast. Hopefully not in jail.
You would not be in jail. You would be.
I wouldn't last in jail.
You would. Well, so we can unpack that on the way home too.
Let's not. That's okay. Not an option for the future. Jail, prison time is not. No. And I hope this footage is not. Somebody's gonna flip this back around and be like, "Hey, isn't this funny that Kev was talking about he ain't gonna be in jail?"
No, you're not going to jail.
All right.
In the name of Jesus.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Boo.
You're welcome.
I love you, and I
love you too.
That wraps up our first episode of the Salad Bowl.